Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Today we're on episode 14, which is hard to believe. This episode is entitled Core Insights, Revisiting the Roots After 3 months of Branching Out. Yes, 3 months. We are one full quarter into this podcast. So it seems like the perfect time to have a special episode and make sure we are able to kind of highlight the strategies that we have shared throughout these episodes, some of the stories that have been shared, the guests that have been on, and make sure we understand the connection of each of these topics and episodes back to the original mission and vision that I had for this podcast. So bear with me today as we do a little reflection on how these first 3 months go. We take some time to highlight a couple of key points or actionable strategies from each episode. This is a great opportunity, if you haven't listened to previous episodes, to hear some of the summaries of those episodes, and you might hear something that resonates with you and might want to jump back to a specific episode and check it out. And then we will be sharing some upcoming exciting things going on with the podcast. So I wanted to start today with just a little reflection on how it's going. So if you've been listening since the beginning, you already know that this podcast is so far outside of my comfort zone. That is the reason that I did it in the first place, because I knew that it was something that would make me uncomfortable, and that's where I grow. So I decided to go into this episode with the mindset that I would be learning new things. I would be practicing skills that I didn't already have. One of those being I had to work on just being able to casually speak and not spend hours upon hours preparing as I normally would do if I'm going to deliver a workshop or a training. I just needed to be able to have casual conversation, make sure that I am able to share my thoughts, my opinions, the strategies I have in a way that connects with my audience, but without the pressure of having everything planned out in advance. I have worked on that. I can say that it's gotten a little bit more comfortable over time. The first 5 episodes were just me riding solo like I am today. And then in episode 6, I started to have some guests. And of course, those became a lot more comfortable for me because I'm not just staring at a camera by myself in a room by myself. I can actually have a conversation with these folks. And I feel like I have so many wonderful people in my life with great stories to share that it's just a wonderful opportunity to get to chat with the people I care about and let them share their stories and the things that I believe make them so special to our community and beyond. So that's been wonderful for me. Have I gotten a little bit more comfortable with the camera? Yes. Am I comfortable yet? No. Far from it, but I will continue to work on it. I actually have admitted to every single guest that I've had that the first few minutes of every episode are very difficult for me, and just recently learned that when I have an error in the beginning of an episode and I might say something that I should not say on this podcast, that other people have been hearing that as they've been edited. So I am going to have to work on my language and try and get it right the first time. So other things we have been learning. Well, I learned that it takes a lot longer than we may had expected to put on a podcast. And I say that because as we're doing this each week, though the podcast maybe it's 40 minutes, 45 minutes, anywhere up to, I believe the longest thus far is around 2.5 hours. They can take many hours to edit. Many hours to edit. It takes a lot of time to get together the social media content, to put together, my thoughts, my questions that I want to ask, to find those people that I want to have on the show. So it is a very time-consuming endeavor for sure, and time wasn't a lot of something I had at my fingertips, but we have made the most of it, and I've had a lot of support in doing so. I also learned that it is not cheap to put on a podcast. You have to invest in the right equipment, the right supplies, the right programs in order to capture these episodes with cameras, with mics, with the editing software. Having the right computer has been important. Thank you to the people who have loaned devices for us to be able to get editing done until we were able to get what we needed ourselves. So it has taken a lot. It's been an investment of both time and money. But I always remind myself that just as I say with every single speaking engagement, workshop, training, as long as one person walks away feeling as if they were impacted by what they heard that day, then it's all worth it to me. So that's what I've been keeping in mind as I think about those things. The other thing is, I did not know there is a podcasting conference that happens every year. It's called the Podcast Movement. It was actually held in National Harbor, and thanks to my friend Mary Sue, who's also a podcaster, we were able to take over her ticket she could no longer use and make the most of that conference this week. And so honestly, the takeaways there, just as in many cases, came from having conversations with people who have been on their own podcasting journey and may have some tidbits to share that might help us to continue to improve this along the way. So really, it was about the stories and the relationships built there. So finally, when I was reflecting on how it's going so far and asked for some feedback from others, not going to call anyone out, I learned that I'm also very picky. I was informed that everything has to be perfect. It's far from perfect, that's for sure. But I guess through this process, I've gotten the feedback that I am picky. So a lot of learning taking place for me. I'm enjoying the process. I appreciate those of you that have been sticking with us and trying to find value in each episode. People are reaching out all the time, learning new things. My dad recently discovered that there's actually a video component to these. He had just been listening to them and he had no idea he could go watch the videos. I've had folks that said, I thought I could only find you on Spotify because you always mention Spotify. No, we're on like 14, 15 different platforms. It's just that Spotify and YouTube are the ones where the episode drops first every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and then on Saturday, you will find them on all of the other platforms. So if you are interested in seeing if your favorite podcast platform has these episodes and you want to subscribe and make sure you get notifications when a new one comes out, go to our website, branchingoutpodcast.com, and it has all the links that you need. So that's just another little tip there to help you out. All right, so let's talk about a recap of some of these episodes, take you back, just highlighting a couple of the key points from each. And hopefully, if you have listened to these episodes, it might kind of solidify your understanding of those topics that we discussed. If you haven't listened, hopefully this is a valuable tool for you to kind of bring you up to speed. So when you listen to episode 15 next week, which I'm really excited about, the guest that I'm going to have next week, then you'll be all up to speed. So episode 1, I really wanted to lay the foundation for the entire podcast. So episode 1 was from living rooms to boardrooms, redefining leadership for everyday life. And the key idea from this episode was just that leadership is not confined to the office. I really wanted people to understand the purpose of this podcast in episode 1. So if you're trying to understand, maybe you caught us later on in these episodes and you're trying to understand, what is this podcast even supposed to be about? Why would I want to tune in? The whole idea is helping people to see that we can lead from wherever we are. Truly. Leadership principles apply to everyday life, and I wanted folks to see that if you are interacting with other people, no matter their age, no matter how you know them, if you are interacting with other people, that every single one of those interactions is an opportunity for you to have a positive influence. So in episode 1, I really tried to encourage people to be intentional about the impact they were having on others. So I gave an example in that episode of my experience at Dunkin', which I was informed it's not Dunkin' Donuts anymore. My brother reached out to me to let me know it's just Dunkin'. But I shared a little story about an opportunity I had to have an impact on a Dunkin' employee's day and how impactful that appeared to be just by taking a moment and giving that person what they needed. And so I wanted my listeners to really think about the interactions they had, just the day-to-day interactions, and how you can turn those around and make sure that when you walk away from that interaction, that folks feel like you added value to them, that you had a positive impact on them, not that you took something from them, not that you had a negative impact, not that you left them feeling drained as they walked away from the interaction. So I wanted in episode 1, everyone to feel like they're a leader, because I learned this way too late in life that I had been leading for a really long time, and I could have been more intentional about those opportunities if I had known I was really leading. So that's why I've chosen in every single episode to start every guest off by having them share, when did you first feel like you were a leader? When did you feel that you were having an impact for the first time, and what did that feel like for you? And it's interesting to hear the variety of kind of timelines for feeling like a leader. I had someone recently who felt like they were leading for the first time when they were a toddler. I most certainly did not. Multiply that age times 10 is when I realized that I had been leading. So I was really hoping that this podcast was not just going to resonate with folks that were CEOs of a company, that were sitting in boardrooms on a regular basis, that held a specific leadership title, but everybody, just everybody, could really tune in and take something that has to do with leadership development, personal or professional growth, and apply it to themselves and lead themselves more effectively as well. So that's what episode 1 was all about. Episode 2, I entitled The Leadership Selfie, Seeing Yourself Clearly to Lead Others Effectively. And the reason I thought that this topic was so important is a lot of times folks will come and ask, how can I lead more effectively? And the very first place we always start is to look at themselves more carefully. And so I had shared a moment in that episode where I started seeing things in my life very clearly for the first time. It was kind of an interesting example of seeing clearly and what that was like for me. And I was hoping that this episode would allow people to really stop and reflect on internal self-awareness versus external. So what I mean when I say that, the distinction between the two, is the internal self-awareness is knowing your motivations, your values, your desires, your strengths, your weaknesses, right? You're aware of that, and that takes a lot of reflection. It takes time and thought to get to a place where you truly know who you are and what you want to be when you grow up, right? Some of us are still trying to figure that out. But what your vision is for your life, the legacy you want to leave behind, the impact you want to have on the world. And then when I say external awareness, I'm talking about understanding others' perception of you and how that perception may be impacting the relationships that you have with others, impacting your team dynamics, and being aware of that external influence. So the leadership selfie was just that. I wanted people to pause and take some time to think about who they are, where they are in their leadership journey, the impact they're currently having. And I always like to think about what strengths I have and how I can tap into those strengths and share them with others, and how they might be complementary. What are the areas that I need to grow in, and how can I find people to surround myself with that will help me to grow in those areas? So that's my summary of episode 2. So go back and check that one out if you want to take some time and reflect on who you are. Then episode 3, my third solo episode, I got a little vulnerable in that episode. I shared some stories of resilience. So that episode was entitled From Setbacks to Success, Building Resilience for Everyday Leaders. And it was just that opportunity for me to share the importance of bouncing forward from those setbacks, using those opportunities to propel you forward. And I had just shared some stories from my life of things that I had experienced and the strategies that I used to get through those difficult times, and be able to look back and see them as opportunities that led me to where I am today, instead of having regrets, right? It's so easy to look back and wish you had handled something differently, or wish that something had never happened to you, but can you see how you grew through it as you went through it? Can you see the opportunities that arose out of those situations? So I had kind of shared a big strategy for me that I talk about all the time is just stopping when I'm in those moments, when I'm in those situations where I've hit an obstacle. I just stop and think about what I can control. What can I control in this situation? And usually the first answer is my mindset. I can control my mindset. I can control the way in which I am taking care of myself during that time, because those are the times where we need self-care most, when, there's a big question mark about, what's going to happen next? Where are we going to go next? I need to make sure that, despite the adversity, despite that setback, that I am going to make sure that I'm taking care of me. And that was a lesson learned. That was a lesson learned for me, and I talked about that in episode 3. And finally, I can control who I surround myself with. And again, are those people that are pouring into me and truly lift me up and want to support me, or are those people that are holding me back and really impacting my mindset in a negative way? So that's what that episode was, and I encouraged people to identify a recent setback that they had gone through and think about their response to that, reflect on that. How could you have handled that a little bit differently? So as you go into that next situation, you have a new strategy to implement. So go back, check out that episode if that's of interest to you. Episode 4 is where I first brought up my wheel of life. And, those that are close to me or clients of mine know my wheel of life. And I know there are tons of versions of wheels of life out there. But episode 4 was called Navigating the Wheel of Life, Blueprint for Balanced Living. And this is where another question that I ask in every single episode with a guest comes in. I always ask about people's thoughts on achieving balance. Is balance really possible? Is that something that people think that they've achieved in their life? If so, how? And what does that look like? But when I talk about the wheel of life in that episode, I kind of break it down and explain it is literally like pizza, right? Cut into slices. It looks like the spokes of a wheel, however you want to look at it. I, of course, create mine like it is a tree broken into sections, and we also have the rings in the tree. Well, I use this to break down 8 different areas of life and consider my current level of satisfaction in each. So, I've heard so many times when we talk about work-life balance, that's really breaking life into 2 segments. And obviously, it's so much more than that. So I share in that episode what those 8 components of the Wheel of Life are. And if you didn't pick up on it, the episodes following that, I started to dive into episode 6 and beyond aspects of the wheel of life. I had an episode on fun and rec. I had an episode on service. I had one on health. I had one on relationships and so on. So these episodes I've been doing connect back to that wheel of life. So as you are assessing your current level of satisfaction in that area of your life, and then kind of considering, well, what is the difference between where I am and what that vision is for that area of my life, I can start to use that to then set goals and be more intentional about my growth in each of these areas. So in this episode, episode 4, I really just break that down and talk about what balance might actually look like. And that does not mean spending the same amount of time in each area, but it means really looking at if I could spend more time on the areas that need my attention right now and would have greater impact on the entire wheel as a whole, can I create balance of the wheel? So if my level of satisfaction is on a scale of 0 to 10, could I achieve all 5s? Could I achieve all 7s? That would be balance, and that would entail really focusing in on just a few areas at a time, not trying to tackle the whole wheel all at once and change everything in your life all at once. That was episode 4, which was a great segue into episode 5, which was my final solo episode before I started having guests come in. And episode 5 was called From Goals to Growth, Fostering Intentionality Wherever You Are. And this was another one where I was really focused on leading yourself effectively first. And based off of that wheel of life, if you identify those areas that needed to be a priority for you, which I identify 3 each quarter that really need my attention, and that's where I choose to set my goals from. In this episode, I talk about what those goals look like, how to break them down. I talked about writing smarter goals and what that means, what each of those components of SMARTER, the acronym, means. And when I'm writing goals, how important alignment is. So alignment of my goals with my values, alignment of my goals with my purpose in life and the priorities that I identified in the wheel of life. So all of this was building on itself as we went through these episodes. I also talked in episode 5 about my shift from being just goal-oriented to being growth-minded, because it's very easy for me to fall into checking all the boxes when it comes to goals, just focusing on that next check mark, and being very frustrated with myself when I didn't get the check mark I was looking for, right? But instead, thinking about how am I growing each day? At the end of the day, did I experience growth in some capacity? Did I make progress towards those overarching goals, not just check a box, right? So that was something that I was hoping folks would take away if they were maybe wired a little bit like me in the beginning and just like checking the boxes. Are you thinking about and giving yourself credit for that ongoing growth that you're experiencing over time? And that brought us to episode 6, where I had my first guest, which I was very excited about. So in episode 6, I had Jay Foreman, who is also into leadership development like me, a Maxwell certified leadership coach, speaker, and trainer. He doesn't do as much on the coaching side. He's more of the speaker and trainer side. And that's why we were able to collaborate so well together. But that episode was entitled Lead, Laugh, Learn, Exploring the Lighter Side of Leadership with Jay. So Jay is a very fun guy. Dad joke in there. Jay is fun, and he is able to infuse fun into, in my opinion, everything that he does. He's got a lot of great stories to tell. He tells what I would consider dad jokes every single day on his Facebook page. And I really wanted to explore what it looked like to incorporate fun into leadership, because we don't typically hear those two things discussed in the same sentence, right? fun leadership, fun workplace. So we talked about integrating fun into leadership and how it can really boost team morale and what that looks like. We also explored whether or not competition should be in the workplace. Does it have a place in a professional setting? So that's something we explored. Something that stuck out from that episode was Jay talking about his story from a time he had a summer job. He was installing insulation. And the opportunity he had to influence the people around him that he had truly just met and was working alongside for the summer, how he had a direct impact on those people and how that was an opportunity that he really took advantage of, the ability to change their lives, change their mindset, even being a bit younger at the time. So that was a really cool story. I enjoyed with Jay. I also loved hearing about how he incorporates leadership into his books because he's also an author. So if you didn't catch that episode, you might want to go back and listen because we talk about his most recent book. We kind of talk through how he incorporates leadership into children's books even in kind of subtle ways so that children are learning lessons and having fun reading them without even knowing it, right? So I thought that was a great way to kind of talk about how leadership applies to everyday life because obviously the children's stories are everyday life kind of stories and there are lessons in there too. So I really enjoyed having Jay. And by the way, I'm going to make sure that for this episode and really all future episodes that we have links for all of these folks, any books that they've written, any resources they have that I mentioned that you might want to have access to. We're going to make sure you have links to those. So obviously I'm going to have Jay's website on there and his most recent book so that you can check that out. So go back and listen to episode 6 if you're interested in hearing more from Jay. Episode 7 was the heart of service. It was shaping the future through community action, and that was with my buddy Seth Thatcher. And I really wanted to tackle a little bit of the service area of the Wheel of Life in this episode. And, when I first thought about service, when I was creating this Wheel of Life a while back, a couple of years ago, I suppose, I was feeling at the time that because I wasn't in a financial position to give back in the community, that I could not do anything in the area of service, and that is so not true. And I really wanted to make sure that people understood that service takes many forms. It can be in the form of giving your time. It can be giving your talent to a cause that you're passionate about. It's so much further beyond just charitable donations. So if you're at a stage in your life where you would like to give back in some capacity and support a cause that you're passionate about, think beyond just one area of service. Is there something you can do to support that cause? And I really enjoyed hearing from Seth and kind of his journey to and through community service. Someone that served as Frederick County Commissioner of the Revenue, has served on a school board, served on the school board with Jay Foreman, and really being able to hear his perspective on leadership, his perspective on kind of dealing with different personalities in the workplace, dealing with situations where obviously when you get into politics and you are in the spotlight, what that feels like, how people may, say things about you or challenge you in ways that you never expected to be, and what that is like to be representing citizens in the community in that capacity, and how difficult it can be, honestly. So just dealing with those challenges. We also got to hear from Seth about his first book, so I can't say just most recent, but his first book, Zendra of the Periphery. He dropped some knowledge bombs of things that I obviously knew nothing about. But it's a very, very cool book, very cool concept. I tried to get him to share some leadership he had woven in that book as well. But really the actionable step from that episode was just to get you thinking about ways that you can be of service to those around you in taking advantage of those moments where you see a need and you could choose to step in that moment rather than walking away and ignoring the need. So fun episode, and we'll make sure that we put links for Seth as well. That takes us to episode 8, which was From Sunrise to Success, A Leader's Path to Lifelong Learning. And that was with Mr. Mark Kelly, our very well-seasoned leader. That's been an ongoing joke because we were using well-seasoned to describe him, because he really switched careers later in life. And that's why it was such a valuable person to have to talk about lifelong learning, because he chose even later in life to kind of pick up and start anew and learn something new, have an impact in a different way. He is currently employed at TWG Insurance and having a wonderful influence on his teammates there. But we just kind of talked about lifelong learning in that episode, which one of the areas of the Wheel of Life is entitled growth. Imagine that I chose growth as an area which could encompass both personal growth, professional development. And so I wanted to have someone on to just talk about growth in general. And he shared some of his philosophy, as we called it, and what has really helped him to be successful. One of the things that he shared, he's always been an early riser, and how that sets him up for success in his day, to get up first thing in the morning and spend time doing the things that allow him to feel ready for the day. He talked about reading and shared some of the authors that he enjoys. And I know I love reading too. I always make the comment that I need to read more. I wish I had more time to read. But we talked about reading a little bit as well. So after that episode, I would just say the actionable steps had to do with taking advantage of opportunities to continue to learn and grow all the time. Every one of these episodes gives you an opportunity to take something we talk about and implement it in your life, try it out. That is really the impact I want to have every time that I am shooting an episode, every time I'm working with a client, is to give folks at least one actionable item, something they can take back and implement right away and see a difference in their lives. So hopefully, if you haven't listened to episode 8, you will go back and check that one out with Mark Kelly. Then episode 9 was me riding solo again. It was weird to go back to just me, but it was because of so many questions around how do I structure my day? How am I as productive as I am? What does my schedule look like? My calendar look like? I get those questions all the time. I actually have people who want to shadow me for the day and kind of see what a day in the life of Sierra looks like. And I just shared a couple of strategies for what I called mastering your minutes, time management strategies for everyday leaders, and covered some of the key things that work for me. I think I mentioned in there a couple of times my full focus planner. I have it with me all the time. I will put a link in the show notes for the full focus planner. When I first learned about the planner and found that it met all of my needs, it combined my personal and professional life or lives into one life and allowed me to really organize things in a way that made sense to me and be strategic in the way I was writing my goals and making sure everything was in alignment. I signed up to get certified to teach others how to use this planner system and really enjoy. In Q4 and Q1 every year, I spend a lot of time facilitating full focus workshops and helping people learn how to implement this system. I'm coming up on a couple of retreats that I'm planning out for Full Focus so that people not only have time to learn how to use the system, but actually will be able to get away and put it into practice so that they're ready for the new year, whether you're joining me in Q4 or in Q1. The great thing about this planner is it's a quarterly planner. So every quarter you have a fresh start and they tie back to your annual goals, and you can kind of modify things as you need to as you go. So it's just very different, but I'll make sure you have links to that. Another thing that's very helpful in structuring my time, helping me to make sure I'm using it wisely, I'm not duplicating efforts, is my Remarkable. I will also make sure that there is a link to Remarkable. I've had that for a few years, and I will speak about that in another episode and provide some more details on the Remarkable, but it's been huge for me as well. So those are the things you see me carrying everywhere that I go, my Full Focus Planner and my Remarkable. But in that episode about mastering your minutes, I provided some of my strategies that really helped me to make the most of my day, whether it was eating the frog first, doing that thing that I was really avoiding, or the biggest task that I need to get out of the way to make myself feel successful and gain momentum for my day. I shared strategies about that, strategies for prioritizing. I shared about my do not disturb during the day, and I thought it was funny yesterday on TikTok. My brother had commented on the tip on do not disturb. I had shared, don't worry, if someone really needs to get a hold of you, you can change the settings. So for example, for me, my quote unquote favorites, if they call 3 times in a row while it's on do not disturb, it will allow that call to come through after the 3 times because obviously they need something, it's important. And so my brother had commented, now it makes sense why my clients call 3 times in a row back to back. They must all think that they're his favorites. So don't test me on that. Don't call me 3 times just to see if you're in my favorites. I will tell you there are very few favorites in my phone. It's the people that I'm emergency contacts for that would be listed as favorites. But feel free to try it out. So anyway, I shared some strategies related to time management, productivity in episode 9. So be sure to check that out. Episode 10, really great episode, if I do say so myself. I have been told that the dynamic between Miss Jessica Gordon, Jess, and myself was pretty good. It was a very long episode. It was the one that I said was about 2.5 hours, and it was entitled Energize Your Leadership, Building Stamina in the Gym and Office with, again, Mrs. Jessica Gordon. Jess is amazing. She has an amazing story to tell. A lot of resilience built in there for sure, but kind of how her fitness journey was born out of personal tragedy, and where that has led her today to now being co-owner with her husband, Jared Gordon, of 540 Fitness here in Winchester, Virginia. Also, Jared does 540 Performance. I actually learned about why 540 and am a little embarrassed to admit that I didn't know it before, but 540 is the area code here. I knew that part, but I didn't know that's why the business was called 540 Fitness and 540 Performance. But anyway, Jess told her story, and it was a powerful story. She also shared a lot of good nuggets about health and fitness and how busy professionals can really take care of themselves and make time for the small things that can have a really big impact on your life. We debunked some myths that have to do with wellness, fitness. We we actually talked about how I needed to commit to getting back into the gym because I had this all or nothing attitude of if I can't run, I'm not doing anything at all, and I can't run right now. But update, I did make it into the gym with Jess. I went and tried out 540 Fitness. It was a wonderful experience. I most certainly want to go back. Something that I thought was really cool about the community that she had built there is that I was literally working out with her mother and her mother-in-law in the same class as me. So when you talk about community and family, in this class, she had such a wide age range of folks, such a different ability level. People like me who haven't done anything in a really long time, and it was a very challenging class. I had to really push myself, and I had trouble walking for a few days, I'm not going to lie. But to have your mother and mother-in-law in the class with you, and the goal being, do now for yourself what your 90-year-old self will thank you for, right? Your 90-year-old self is going to thank you for what you're doing in that gym today. It was a really fun experience. So I will go back, and I encourage those of you that are local, go check out 540 Fitness. Those of you that aren't, the cool thing is she's a nutrition coach too. Her husband is a personal trainer. You can go to 540 Performance, and he works with folks all over the place. So you guys can also get access to them. Really cool story. So please, I know it's a long episode, even if you have to break it into chunks, go back and listen to that one. It's definitely worth it. And thank you to her and her 540 Fitness community for welcoming me with open arms. It was wonderful. Episode 11, Strategic Spaces, Designing Environments That Enhance Leadership. That was with Mr. Yaron Lynette of Formal Traditional. He's the principal designer at Formal Traditional here locally. And this covered the physical environment area of the Wheel of Life. So when we're talking about physical environment, we're talking about safety, security, comfort, functionality of the space in which we work and live, and thinking about how those things can actually impact how productive we are, or the morale, whether it's our own team morale, whatever it may be, really thinking about the space that you're in. And designing it in a way that serves you well. So we dug into some of the key things that you should think about, whether you have a home office and really want to create the space that works well for you, whether you are in an office setting with other people, what you can do to make that more suitable for you. It was really timely because I just had a conversation this week with a client who was sharing that they're going to have to find a co-working space because they are seeing that working from home with their desk actually in their bedroom, so their home office and their bedroom, one and the same, is not working well for them for their ability to focus or their productivity. So we're trying to get them out of the home and into a space that is more suitable for who they are, their ideal environment. So it was really a timely episode to then have that conversation with a client. So just think about the physical environment and how it's impacting you. It was a cool episode to really think differently from that interior design lens. I was also talking about a really cool feature that Yaron has. He and his wife are very talented. She's the artist of the business, but the ability to use a VR headset and see the final result before you ever take the first step is really cool, especially for someone like me who cannot really envision these things. I don't see myself as being super creative. And so I really need to see what is this going to look like before I can make a decision, or I will kind of get stuck in the cycle of I don't know what to do and won't make a decision. So I thought that was really cool. So if you have a space that you are looking to work on modifying any way to better suit your needs, whether it's to entertain people, building those relationships personally or professionally, whether it is really that office environment. I know tons of interior designers. They all have very different styles. You can find one that really aligns with what you're looking for. So reach out. Let me know if you're looking for someone. But I featured your own Lynette of Formal Traditional. And then episode 12. Episode 12 was Navigating Networks, the Impact of Relationships on Growth and Leadership. And that was with Cynthia Schneider, who is the CEO of Top of Virginia Regional Chamber. And this is really exciting because since we aired that episode, or actually since we recorded that episode, let me try that again. Since we recorded the episode with Cynthia Schneider, the CEO of the Top of Virginia Regional Chamber, she was actually named 2024 Chamber Executive of the Year by the Virginia Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, which is amazing. So congratulations to Cynthia. Obviously, you can see she's having a major impact and is known for that impact that she's having on the community, the region, and beyond. But the purpose of that episode was really to talk about how building and maintaining professional relationships is really fundamental to your growth and how many opportunities come out of that. And if you think about the value of networking, let me tell you this. So I went from the world of education to the world of business, and really the two weren't interwoven for me, though I had grown up in this area. When I switched to the world of business, I didn't know anybody. And so it was really helpful to go out and use the chamber and other networking groups as opportunities to build relationships. But if you think about it, every single one of these episodes that I have a guest was born out of the fact that I built a relationship with those folks since the time I started my business. All of these people that I'm having on are people that I have met in the past 4 years and have become an important part of my life. And so it's really cool to think about when we talk about the power of these relationships in your, on your growth and the opportunities that arise out of them. Every single one of those relationships brought a lot of opportunity to learn and grow from those around me. So it was a great episode. She shared some networking nuggets, I would say, tips for networking. We just talked about some strategies in building relationships and how to be intentional about it. I know intentional should be my middle name because I say it all the time, but I feel like with the amount of time that we have here and not knowing how much time that is, we should be intentional with all the things that we do. So be intentional about networking too. So it was wonderful to have Cynthia on episode 12. If you didn't catch it, just jump a couple episodes back and check that one out. And then finally, before today's episode, we had episode 13, the most recent, was Empathy and Assets, Leadership Strategies for Difficult Conversations. And that was with Mr. Will Lawrence. And Will and I really talked about the critical role of empathy in so many things that we do, right? Any interaction that we have, we need to be empathetic, but especially in a leadership role and especially in financial discussion. So this is where we dug into the financial well-being piece of the Wheel of Life and talked about those difficult conversations of finances that he has to go through as a financial advisor and really build trust with people so that they feel comfortable kind of sharing where they are, what their financial goals are, and he can come alongside them and help them. But the really fun thing about Will is there's a lot of layers. He is a business owner. He's an owner of a brewery. He also is a radio show host. He's also a financial advisor, and the list goes on and on. There's just so much to Will, and he told a lot of really great stories. One of them was really powerful. Go back and listen to episode 13. And even if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, find the part about the $20 bill. That's your challenge. Find the part about the $20 bill. I bet that story will be impactful for you. So I really enjoyed Will. He's one of my closest friends, one of the wolf pack that I talk about. And I think that this episode really allowed us to look at the importance of empathy in really all of our relationships, personal and professional. So that was great. So that brings us back to where we are today, episode 14. So hopefully it's been helpful to kind of recap some of the key points from these episodes and then understand how they all relate back to this core idea of everyday leadership, right? We are all leading. We can take leadership principles and apply them to everyday life. And I am really excited about what's to come for the podcast. We're continuing to learn and grow all the time. We're continuing to gain support and followers. And I have always been actively looking for upcoming guests. I am excited about the guests coming up in a couple of future shows that I have in just the next few weeks even. So if you are, after hearing what we talked about today, if you are interested and feel like you would be a good fit for the Branching Out with Sierra podcast and you would like to appear as a guest, I will tell you that there is an application. Some people were making fun of me for that, but there is an application on branchingoutpodcast.com. If you scroll down, there is a guest application for you to fill out. No, I'm not just having anyone and everyone on the podcast. I think you guys know me well enough to know that I wouldn't do that. So it's really based on relationships that I have with folks already. And it's based on people that I see doing really amazing things in the community, in the region, in the country that I'm reaching out to and inviting them in to share their knowledge and expertise with you. So thank you so much for your support up until this point. It's been an exciting journey. I have no idea where it's going to go from here. But what I would love for you to do, I really would love for you to do this. I'm asking you, I'm begging you, please. I want to hear if you have just taken one thing, just one thing away from these first 13, now 14 episodes. What is your takeaway? And if you share that takeaway, I would love for you to share it on social media, hop on our Branching Out podcast page on Facebook, which we now have over 500 followers on there, so that's really exciting. But I want you to use the hashtag I am branching out. So if you have learned anything from, even if it's from a guest where I ask them what they're learning right now and they start talking about something that you've never heard of before, like happened to me several times, even if that's the thing you learned, I want to hear it. We want to hear it. So please use the hashtag I am branching out and let us know. Also, if you have questions, some people have been reaching out with questions. That's how I come up with my solo topics as well. If, the folks that asked about how I manage my time, yes, sure, I'll talk about it. If there's something that you're just dying to know about or a leadership topic you want me to explore, please reach out. Let me know. Submit your topics. I want to hear from you. I don't want this to just be me talking to a camera. I want to hear from you. So again, thank you so much for your support. Be sure to subscribe so that you get notifications every week when we drop another episode. And I have some exciting things coming up. I am going to be doing a drawing soon, and I think folks are really going to like the way that I'm doing this. So be looking at social media to see the announcement of what's coming up. Someone from this drawing is going to be featured in an episode of this podcast. So if you're looking to be a guest, you can also enter into this drawing, and there's a chance you might be pulled in, and you're going to get something in return. So thank you again. I'm excited to share this with you. Keep branching out. That's what this is all about. Keep trying new things, learning new things, having a positive impact on those people around you. Until next time, keep branching out.